Happy Wednesday. Many thanks for joining the program. The news in detail with me, Gloria Mutesi. Starting us off tonight, according to the National Institute of Statistics, Rwanda's gross domestic product has grown by 20.6% in the second quarter of 2021, following a decrease of 12.4% in quarter two of 2020. In the second quarter of 2021, the GDP at current market prices was estimated to be 2,665 billion Rwanda francs, up from 2,177 billion Rwanda francs in quarter two of 2020. Services continued to lead in terms of shares to GDP with 47% compared to 25% and 19% shares for agriculture and industry respectively. The remainder 9% was attributed to adjustment for taxes and subsidies on policies. In this quarter, estimates calculated in 2017 prices show that GDP was 20.6% higher when compared to the same quarter of 2020. Agricultural activities grew by 7% and contributed 2.0 percentage points to overall GDP growth. Within agriculture, the production of food crops increased by 7%, while the production of export crops decreased by 2%. Industrial activities grew by 30% and contributed 5.1% to GDP growth. The main contributors in the industry sector were construction activities, which grew by 33%, and manufacturing activities, which grew by 23%. Mining and quarrying activities also increased by 87%, and the growth in manufacturing activities is due to an increase of 111% in the production of furniture and other manufacturing, 11% of food processing, 39% in production of chemicals, rubber, and plastic products, and 47% in metal products, machinery, and equipment. Services activities grew by 24% and contributed 10.8% points to GDP growth, and within the services sector, wholesale and retail trade increased by 34%, transport increased by 48%, education increased by 168%, information and communication increased by 28%, while financial services increased by 19%. In the second quarter of 2021, total final consumption expenditure increased by 46%, with household final consumption increasing by 52%. Government financial consumption increased by 20%, and imports remained constant at 0% growth. However, exports and gross capital formation decreased by 7% and 58% respectively. In other news, youth in Rwanda have been noting that the fact that they're encouraged to play their part in all aspects of the country's development efforts is an indication of the progress Rwanda has made when it comes to democracy. This comes as Rwandans join the rest of the globe in marking International Democracy Day on Wednesday. Sessionary has the details.
As part of events organized to mark International Democracy Day, the NGO Never Again Rwanda organized discussions that brought together more than 100 youth from across the country.
Today we are celebrating democracy because there was a time it did not exist. I believe it is important to acknowledge that it is great that we can speak our minds as young people and we are taken seriously. That is democracy, and it is useful to society.
hari demokarasi igitekerezo cyanjye kirumvikana kikagira n'akamaro kuri societe.
Ihambere nuko duhabwa urwo rubuga nko kwa programs nka Meet the President iba kugira ngo.
First off, we are given numerous avenues to air our views. Forums like Meet the President, where we speak our mind and he responds to our input, showing us that he supports us as our president. In Parliament, we have 2 youth MPs, and they speak on our behalf so that our ideas can be achieved.
Social media zaje.
With things like social media, you can just post your question for a leader instead of trying to find them in their office. That sort of freedom is an indication of democracy, with people easily able to reach their leaders.
Organizers point out that there can be no democracy if the youth are ignored.
Abanyarwanda hafi 60% ni urubyiruko.
Close to 60% of Rwanda's population is made up of young people, and when you want to raise up a society that will continue building up the country moving forward, then you must first build up the youth. As for the principles of democracy and governance, We at Never Again Rwanda feel it is important to prepare the youth because they are the leaders of the future and need that capacity building and knowledge of governance, playing a role in the things currently being done for them.
bagomba kugira uruhare mu bibakorerwa.
2020 Rwanda Governance Scorecard noted that inclusiveness and participation of people in the decision-making process is now at 81.96%. Taking into account Rwanda's past and culture is an important factor when assessing such indicators and the progress the country has been making.
Igihe tuganira kuri demokarasi uyu munsi twakwishimira intambwe ikomeye igihugu cyacu kimaze gutera.
As we talk about democracy today, we can appreciate the strides our country has made in that respect. We also look at it in the light of Rwanda's uniqueness, especially looking at the challenges the country is facing and how they can be resolved. That is why it is important to acknowledge the uniqueness of our country, its culture, history, and the objectives we have set for ourselves as a people. Democracy that ignores the context of a country can easily lead it astray.
Demokarasi ititaye kuri context y'igihugu ishobora kuyobya igihugu.
Rwanda's accountability among her leaders has also been praised by the international community.
As we see a very strong accountability, leaders level, even at local level. So we see this as a pillar of the, let's say, institutional architecture in the country. And so this principle of accountability should be very well, say, understood since the very beginning. So that's very important. So here in Rwanda, we are extremely, say, interested into this model of accountability, which is also linked to the broader, let's say, objectives of this country. The vision and the ambition of the country can be achieved thanks to these really clear accountability principles. Fight against corruption is another pillar of this equation, I think. Which is also involving not only the public sector but also the private sector.
International Democracy Day was first established by the UN back in 2007 and is marked on the 15th of September annually.
Religious leaders and churches are being called upon to show solidarity in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic after it's been established that some of those that violate the prevention guidelines are congregants of these various churches, including their own leaders. A total of 240 people representing religious denominations and churches operating in Rwanda began 5-day talks to help them better understand their role in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, organized by the Ministry of Health in collaboration with World Relief. Among the things they are being taught is a campaign called Sindohoka, loosely translated to I Will Not Give Up, aimed at encouraging people not to become complacent but rather join hands in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The Rwanda Governance Board reiterates that it is important for everyone to be on the same page when it comes to fight the spread of the pandemic.
Ibintu nka bibiri cyane cyane kujya guterana no gusengera hatemewe.
We are seeing people meeting for prayers in places and times that aren't allowed, and people that go to churches or gather in homes exceeding the required numbers. There are even others that have different beliefs that COVID-19 is not real. In what they call prophecy, they call the COVID-19 a devil, and that the measures in place to fight against the virus are for the devil. Hence why they are not wearing face masks and other measures in place. They need to be trained, but they also need to be punished. Both should go hand in hand. Those in charge of religious denominations and churches should train them, with other authorities following up on them too.
N'inzego zibishinzwe zindi zikabakurikirana.
Tugerageza gukora ubuvugizi bwacu ahantu hose ku banyarwanda bose muri rusange.
We are planning to meet with those who go beyond COVID-19 prevention measures and show them that the pandemic doesn't discriminate religious denominations, race, country, or even gender. It affects everyone.
Utaramutse kitwayeho uko bikwiye kimugeraho kandi kikamugirira nabi.
Waba yayobye kuko ijambo ry'Imana ubwaryo.
The word of God itself tells us to follow the law and make it part of us, because Jesus said he came to earth so we could have life and have it in abundance. So those that go beyond the guidelines don't protect their life. We have to sensitize them and guide them so they could become fully aware.
Government officials have asked religious leaders and churches to understand their role in the fight against the spread of the pandemic that continues to rob many Rwandans of their lives, because contrary to what many believe, the pandemic is still very much present. Currently, 80% of those in hospital because of COVID-19 are pregnant women and the young, including a 22-month-old child.
Abarwayi mu bitaro turabafite. Abarwayi bari no ku mwuka.
We still have patients in hospitals, including children. Among the tests we conduct daily, we see positive cases, including those that have been vaccinated. Most of those that are in hospital are referrals from other provinces. And the most patients are pregnant women. They are among the most affected. Some have been vaccinated and others not, because we vaccinate those that are 12 weeks pregnant. There are some that get infected before they are 12 weeks, or others that choose not to get the vaccines, and others because they hadn't had access to the vaccines yet. The goal is that the country doesn't go back into lockdown and for life to go back to normal with many people vaccinated as vaccines are made available.
No kurinda bikazamuka kuko abantu bamaze gusobanukirwa covid no kwirwara no kumuntu yayirinda.
Figures from the Ministry of Health show that more than 1.8 million people have received at least their first dose, and among those, almost 800,000 have received both doses. The goal is that by the end of 2021, 40% of those who are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine will have been vaccinated. Religious leaders and churches are being called upon to encourage their congregations to participate in the vaccination campaign. To other news, experts in the management and use of drones point out that the problem of limited knowledge on how to use drones should be solved, and hence why a school teaching how to make and use drones is going to be established in Rwanda. Let's now hear from Jane Mutoni.
The Rwanda Civil Aviation Authority has brought together stakeholders with domestic and foreign drones to improve their operations and thus continue to change operations at various levels. Serge Tuyihimbaze of LEAPR Labs, who makes and uses drones, highlighted some of the improvements that should be made.
We are confident enough about our talent's capacity. I'm not saying this because it's just something I know from somewhere, or it's just experience I have that our young people, they are talented. The only thing they need is to be nurtured. They need enough resources in order to grow their ability. The other thing is, the other challenge will be not being able to identify the right talents. So because most of the times it requires having many so that you can be able to have the right ones.
These three-day discussions are focusing on the training, use, operation, insurance and development of these drones in general. The director of the drones at the National Civil Aviation Authority, Andrew Mutabaruka, says that once the requirements are met sooner, the drone's license would be expedited.
Industry is still evolving. There are so many changes taking place in the industry, and that necessitates continuous review and amendment of regulations, and that is the strategy that we have. RCA works with other stakeholders to ensure that we match with the requirements of the changes in the industry.
The Minister of Information and Communications Technology and Innovation, Ingabire Paula, says there is an area of about 29 hectares in Huye district which are to be built on a school that teaches how to make drones. Very few have the capacity and the knowledge to make them. We are working with sponsors in order to see how we can increase capacity and knowledge of Rwandans so that they can have the knowledge and capacity to make these drones and help them solve issues in agriculture, health and other various sectors. The discussions were attended by representatives of well-known companies including Zipline, Charis, LEAPR Labs, Dynamics and international aviation organizations. Jane Mutoni, RTV News.
Many thanks, Jane Mutoni. Various agencies are pleased that the idea of organizing an international youth and partnership conference known as Youth Connect has now been expanded, and the conference is being organized internationally with 23 African countries already registered as members. This is while Ghana prepares to host the event in October this year. Innocent Mugabo now reports.
Youth Connect
In 2012, President Paul Kagame officially launched the Youth Connect conference. 5 years after its launch, it expanded to other African countries and became Youth Connect Africa, with now 23 member countries. Oli Keita, the executive director of Youth Connect Africa, says the expansion of such a program launched in Rwanda reflects the cooperation of African countries.
So today, from 2012 to 2021, we are now operating in 23 countries, replicating the model, the successful Rwandan model on the continent. And this is actually the 4th edition of the Youth Connect Africa Summit. Previous summits have been held here in Kigali, and this is the first time we are moving into another country to organize the Youth Connect Africa Summit. It's a great opportunity for Youth Connect Africa to really show collaboration between African countries. So it's decentralizing now, and countries outside of Rwanda are actually taking ownership. So we are grateful for the leadership of the government of Ghana in hosting this 4th edition of the Youth Connect Africa Summit.
Ghana was supposed to host the Youth Connect in 2020. This was made impossible due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, but was rescheduled to this year from 20th to 22nd of October. The summit will aim to make Africa self-reliant and show the youth opportunities in the Common Market Agreement signed by countries. Minister of Youth and Culture Rosemary Mbabazi says this is aimed at building capable African youth. On the part of Youth Connect Africa Executive Director Oli Keita, she points out that the youth should make good use of the common market.
This is to enable us, train our youth to learn to be self-reliant and get to know that if something is possible in Rwanda, it can also be anywhere else. The youth should know that their development depends on what they decide for their life and learn to think big. Take a look at the problems the youth are facing associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. They should be thinking on how to overcome them rather than on waiting for others to think for them.
As you know, His Excellency President Kagame has been one of the leaders on the continent to push for the African Free Trade Agreement. It's now operational, and we are making sure that the young people have space within this new opportunity. This is $1 billion opportunity for Africa, and it will really enhance trade between countries and regional integration. So the theme of this year's summit is timely, and we as the hub, the Youth Connect Africa hub, will be working with young people across the continent to make sure that they take their space in the implementation of the African Free Trade Agreement.
In October, youths with outstanding projects are set to be rewarded with Youth Connect as usual.
We would like to inform all youths with outstanding projects that we shall meet in Accra to reward all projects that come out and they're outstanding from different countries. This is an international event, so we urge the Rwandan youth to register at the Youth Connect Africa Hub website to compete with other Africans.
Since the launch of Youth Connect in Rwanda, more than 8,000 youth have managed to create 14,000 jobs, and more than 4 million were trained to be good citizens through dialogue. Innocent Mogabo, RTV News.
Now, the Rwanda Investigation Bureau has partnered with UNICEF in establishing a child-friendly space for victims of child abuse, in further strengthening child protection mechanisms against abuse and ensuring that their rights are respected. Let's now hear from Jocelyn Mugwaneza.
The child-friendly space for victims of children abuse has been launched with an aim to provide comprehensive anti-gender-based violence and child abuse services, including investigation. RIB officials have observed that the child-friendly space will help in obtaining justice as well as carrying out in-depth investigations. We have officially opened spaces where children can safely share their stories of crime, either perpetrators, victims, or witnesses. It is also a space where a child will feel safer. The child will be feeling at ease and rest while talking to the investigator, especially that its aim is for a child to give reliable information without scaring him or her, which can lead to silence during the investigation process. UNICEF officials have said that they chose to work with RIB because of its reliable investigative competence to assist children when required.
You know, RIB is the most important body in Rwanda that makes sure that investigations, criminal investigations, take place. That's their core mandate. So there's no one else whom we should work with, and they're clearly the best, most important partner for this work.
The Rwanda Investigation Bureau has announced that in partnership with UNICEF, this program was spread to the entire country.